Welcome to the Passive with Property podcast, hosted by Dragan Dimovski and co-host Amanda Calabria. With over 2 decades of property investing, Dragan is a qualified property investment advisor and buyer's agent. We're committed to the education of both first-time and seasoned investors in property investment and wealth creation. The Passive with Property podcast is brought to you by the Buyers Agency Australia.
Hi guys, welcome to the podcast. I'm Dragan Dimovski, and as always, the lovely Amanda Calabria, our co-host. How are you, Amanda?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much. So today, Amanda, we're going to be discussing when should people level up. So what I mean by that, or the questions I get from some people, should I buy my first investment property as a commercial property? Okay. Or the other question, I have 3 properties right now, which are residential, standard residential. I need to move into the next, as we call it, level up. Should I go in commercial, or should I do my first house and subdivision project? Or should I start with that? So this is an area we get this question quite often. So let's start with that.
Yeah, it's a really dense topic because people really want to run before they can walk.
Yeah.
They want property to be a fast game when it's a long game.
Yeah.
So by asking, should I start with commercial or should I start with subdivision or start with that level up, running before they're walking, carries inherent risk because you're rushing a process that you haven't grown into.
Yeah.
And I do think buy and hold and getting used to buy and hold first is wise. You can choose your buy and hold properties based on their future potential. For example, you might sit on a subdivision site as your first or second or third buy and hold.
Yeah.
But should you launch straight in with no experience, no finance, and no...
But also to be clear, we are talking about people not using professional service like ours, where we can actually this is if you are solely going on your own.
Yeah, but even the clients that come to us and go, well, I want to be rich in 5 years, not 15. So I want to do a subdivision. But the thing is, yes, we can hold your hand and guide you through it and all of that, but you still have to fund what is going to be a vacant property while it's
That's right.
You're going to have to carry the risk that comes with any builder delays, any whatever happens, things that are out of our control as well.
Yeah.
As much as we can guide you, we can't steamroll every risk out of your path.
Yeah.
All we can do is manage the risk with our experience and say, these are the things that might come up. This is how we're managing, minimizing the odds of them coming up. But at the end of the day, for a first-time investor or a beginning investor that hasn't grown into these strategies, I would actually encourage them to get used to managing risk on something lower risk at least.
Yeah.
Because, we're not a safety net of steamrolling things out.
Exactly. And look, it really does also depend on your risk tolerance, what your wage is. If you're an individual that earns $300,000 per year, and a lot of that, sits in your bank, then sure, you can take these smaller risks. And I do have to be clear, smaller risks.
And you mentioned, risk. You also grow into a higher risk appetite as well.
That's right.
So when you first start out, you might fear debt more than you do later on. And later on you go, mate, the bank's giving you money, I'm taking it.
Okay.
In the beginning, you might go, I don't want to borrow to my maximum, that's too risky.
Yeah.
So you've got to grow into the risk of leveling up as well. Mm-hmm. And I think experience, it's like you look at a year 1 kid, I'll use my daughter as an example. She's in year 2. I look at the things that stress her out. And I think, are you for real?
Yeah.
But in her world, that stress is commensurate to her life experience.
Yeah, that's right.
And then when she gets to year 5, she'll look at year 2 and go, that was easy.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with investing. If you try to do year 5 before you do kindergarten, well, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
You've got to do things in a particular order and in a particular way and grow into them in a sequential way that builds a foundation of stability and confidence and courage and all of that. That's not just say you slow yourself down.
Yeah.
But you don't want to build a house of cards.
That's right.
Because as soon as the wind blows, it falls over.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially, putting everything in one basket.
Yes.
That's this beginning at your first time investment.
Yes.
What happens if you fail on that one? You're going to be scared, moving forward to go again. And I've seen that in the past.
Yeah.
When people make mistakes and then they go, oh, no, property investment never works, and they're all sharks out there, and then you get all those,
negative talk.
no negative talk that you hear sometimes. But but let's just say, because we do get them, people are asked, okay, 50 years old, okay, their time is not on their side, and they want to do something within, 5 to 10 years. One of the questions, should I buy a commercial property first? What would you say to that?
Well, I'd have to know their background. Do they have they got equity, they got other investments, are they open to an SMSF, all of that. I mean, you'd run information and gather more info. But I would outline the inherent risks with starting with commercial. Commercial is not liquid, they're hard to sell.
Yep.
The cash flow is good if they're rented. But when they're vacant, they're vacant for a very long time often.
And again, you needing to know where to purchase, if there's high demand in that area. I rent all the fundamentals, of course. Yeah. Keeping in mind, even in a good area where there's high demand, you'd be looking at 3 to possibly even 6 months of vacancy. Can you afford that?
And even when they do, when you do find a tenant, they'll often want the first 3 months rent free while they establish their business because they don't have cash flow yet. So you're burdening or shouldering the burden of their lack of cash flow as the landlord. I think people don't realize how risky vacant commercial is.
Yeah.
And how easy in this economy, how easily you can end up holding the can.
Yeah,
on
definitely.
Commercial property. And I know people that it's happened to where they think if I just renovate it or make it look nice, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If the business occupying that premises is not profitable, they're gone. And when multiple businesses in a slow economy or a recession all start failing, there's oversupply and no one occupying these properties.
Yeah.
So I'd be very careful, especially as a first investment. If you get to the point where you've got multiple investments, your cash flow positive, you've got a bit of money to play with, you can afford a bit of risk, and you see something that looks good, by all means go for it.
Yep.
But as I said, you've got to grow into that.
That's right.
You don't start there.
I agree. So Amanda, what would you suggest? Someone that's 50 years old, and did I already ask that question?
Would I steer them into?
Would you steer not commercial? What would
I tell them?
What would you tell them to do?
What's their background? Have they got other investments? Do they?
Oh no, first time investor. They realize now they're 50 years old. They need to invest into something, but they don't want to just stick to the standard property because it's
too slow for
them.
Do they own the home they live in?
Yeah, they do. They've got equity. They've got about a 1.5 million equity. Sorry, they owe is valued at 1.5. They owe 500.
Okay.
I've actually got a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
What's that look?
No, I see why are they 50 and they've only paid off that much. What are they doing? But
Oh no, I'm giving a scenario.
Yeah.
I've got a strategy.
Tell me.
So that it's one of my favorite strategies, and that's buy a house with a larger block of land and just sit on that if you don't want to, subdivide straight away.
I thought they wanted wham bam thank you ma'am quickly.
They're
rich.
They can, but they'll sit on it for a bit, get comfortable with the rent that's coming in, then they have the option.
So they're forward planning the quick strategy while getting their feet wet.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think?
I like it.
Yeah.
I think any investor should have a long-term view of the potential of a property.
Yeah.
And particularly in their case where they do know that they're wanting to level up.
Yeah.
To not rule themselves out of it with their choice of early properties.
Yeah. So a lot of my clients, or our clients, I should say, that do come on board, they always, I'll say 80%, 90% of them are fixed that they're happy with a 500 square meter block, 3 or 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom, lock-up garage.
They're told that
in a quiet street. That's the standard. That's your standard. That's what 99% of investors.
And it's low risk.
It was low risk. Yeah. But why not an 800 or a 700? Depends on council, of course. Yeah. Why not 1,000 square meter block that you can? It's exactly the same property. It will probably be a little bit older, but you have the option then later. You're setting yourself up from the beginning.
Yeah.
And if I could go, guys, if I can go back 25 years.
And land bank everything.
Okay, seriously, tell my early 20-year-old.
If we all had the opportunity to say, if I could go back,
Here's what I'm going to say, and I think this is vital for people who are starting out. If I can go back to my early 20 self and say, forget about buying that new apartment or that, 2-bedroom apartment and all that, whatever it was, go up and buy. I didn't care if it's in Brisbane. At that time, Brisbane wasn't popular, to be investing in property. Over there, for the same price, you can get 2 houses that are sitting on, a 1,000 square meter block. Buy that.
Yeah,
and just sit on.
Hindsight is always 2020. But then you.
But what I'm trying to say.
Well, what would in 25 years' time tell you today? That's what you got to be doing now.
Of course, no. But I'm not speaking to me. I'm speaking to the listener that is a first time wanting to buy their first property. That's who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
What I will say to myself, that's a whole different story. Yeah.
But so to those clients, it's don't sell yourself short of your future potential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like just on our other podcast, we also spoke about the limit of borrowing.
Yeah.
Don't limit yourself there as well. Don't limit yourself to the property, and ask the question, is this a good idea? Don't just come in and say, hey, I'm looking to buy I guess it's part of the strategy we use when we are talking to clients is, I know you said this is what you want, but look at this option and that option as well. Had you considered these, and these are the reasons why, and usually you'll see they'll think about it for a few days and go, actually, that's a great idea.
Yeah. And knowing that people do always eventually want to level up, they might not realize it in the moment with that first property, but we know once they've purchased a couple, their confidence will kick in, their risk tolerance will kick in. They will want to level up. And that's when we can go, well, lucky I've already baked that in for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And they might not want to hear it on the first one or the second one, but laying the groundwork early with those properties like you talked about with the 50-year-old couple that can be subdivided later.
Yep.
If you've already got them in the portfolio, then you don't have to purchase again. You just subdivide what's there.
Well, you subdivide exactly. You save on purchasing another property. You save also, even if it's not subdivided, you're not paying the land tax as an additional property as well. And there's so many other benefits.
Correct.
It's not just buying the house that could be subdivided.
But taking advice from someone that is more forward thinking
before
you've grown into the forward thinking yourself, 100%. Because a lot of buyer's agents will quite happily.
Look, they're just chasing
they'll sell those low risk ones because you've asked for them and they meet the brief, right? You give them the brief, they'll meet it.
Yeah.
But they won't do the thinking for you. They'll just meet you brief.
Exactly. And it comes back to also, hey, you want that, that 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom property. What if we look for a 3-bedroom with 2 living rooms?
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I look for when I purchase a property for clients. Yeah. Oh, you know what? There's that second living room. You'll spend even if you spend $5,000, you put up a wall, you make it into a 4th bedroom. Suddenly your equity has increased, for a 4th bedroom. So not only are we buying off market, not are we buying under market for the value, but now we're also adding on top. So it's a little trifecta there.
Yeah, and people don't know what they don't know. That's why they hire a professional. So to micromanage the professional is counterintuitive, right? So if you've got a buyer's agent that relies on you for the brief, then what knowledge are you buying from them?
Yes.
So you've got to be really careful, and you've always said this, avoid the one-size-fits-all type. Because the brief doesn't serve the client.
Yep.
It's got to be very much a case of, okay, this is your risk tolerance, this is your budget, this is your pre-approval, this is your strategy. Okay, we know you're going to grow into it as you stick to it, so we'll bake that in.
Yeah.
They're not doing that for you. They're not. You're paying for a service that isn't comprehensive and complete. Mm-hmm. It's like, I can't even think of an analogy. It's like, I don't know, paying for a loaf of bread and only getting the crust. I don't know.
Sure, let's run with that.
That's the rest of my bread. But it's kind of the same thing. What are you paying for and what are you getting in return?
Yeah.
Because the return on investment isn't just on the property, it's on the choice of professionals. Are they buying you the best investment with the best return? Because that's your return on their fee.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can have a short one on this one, right?
It is a short one, but I think
It's an important one. That's right.
because leveling up, I think a lot of people, when they first start out, they think, oh no, that's out of reach. I can't get there. But they do, they will, and they always level up.
Yeah.
Because
Definitely.
they realize once they get 1, 2, 3, it is in reach and they do want more.
But here's the thing. I was worse than most of my clients because at least most of my clients are purchasing houses. I went to a safer option at a 2-bedroom apartment. That is sort of, less, more, so to speak, safer than going to a house because a house was a bit more expensive. So I went for the cheapest option just to get my foot into it as an investment. Ding dong, that's wrong.
Yeah, we know that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
clients can learn from our mistakes.
exactly, and give them options and tell them why that is a good option and it's still safe. Yeah,
Exactly right.
So guys, any more questions, feel free to jump on to propertysession.com.au/15, book your 15-minute discovery call. Have your questions ready. No silly question is sorry. No.
You just said there's no silly answers.
There's no silly answer to silly, you know what I'm trying to say.
No silly question. The only silly question is one you
You didn't ask. That's right. Exactly. So happy to answer anything for you. Yep. So the link will be below as well. Also, a little bit of news. I am releasing my first book published by Wiley, Property Equals Wealth. I'll add a link below for that. You can purchase that book at any local bookstores, the airports. I got that news yesterday. Or Amazon or Booktopia, or
And the book will go into more of this leveling up business.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So thank you very much. Subscribe, like us, all the wonderful social media things that that people out there in social media world do. Amanda, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.